From Anchored in Faith Gospel Church in Oxford, Iowa, this is Anchored in Faith.
Actually, this time we're going to take a little side trip. Pastor John used to teach that America was an important part of Bible prophecy. Now, I didn't get all of that teaching from him, but he did teach that. And certainly, America is a major, still, at least on the surface, a Christian nation. I mean, Europe is pretty dead. Europe is going down fast, really. I mean, you think of Europe, that's where the Reformation was, Martin Luther, John Calvin, John Knox, all the great preachers of the Reformation, all the great movements, the Wesleys, and all of that came out of Europe. But Europe is sinking fast. Not only because of the immigrant thing, but before that. I mean, the churches were very dead, very liberal. Most countries in Europe have a state-run church, which is just another government job, basically. You become a minister and get paid by the government. That's true in England, that's true in several countries, still today. But what we had back in the time of Gideon is we have Israel, of course, is in apostasy. They've run after Baal. They've run away from the God of Moses. And you asked me where was the tabernacle. I couldn't find an answer to that. I searched a couple sites, and I couldn't find where the tabernacle, that's where they were supposed to be worshiping, was the tabernacle. And the sacrifices were supposed to be going on every day. Now, this is before the temple, but still, the priests were supposed to be making sacrifices and offerings and, dealing with the people and all of this. So I guess I don't have an answer to that, except that it was probably being hidden somewhere. I don't know, because Israel was under the control of different countries, the Midianites, the Philistines, the Amalekites, whoever. God would bring them in, of course, and then they would cry out. So what we have is Israel, and they've got a two-tier religious thing going on here. They know about the God of Moses. They know about it. At least something. And yet they're worshiping Baal. They got Baal. Gideon's father's got an altar to Baal in his yard. And so it brings me to our situation in this country, because we've had the gospel, and I've said this before, for 300 years. This country was founded by people who wanted to serve God. The Pilgrims came here, and they were very, very biblical, very close to God. They got kicked out of England and the Netherlands and came to America so they could worship God in the way that they felt that the Bible was showing them. And so today we don't have that. Today we have a church system that, talks about God, and we have things in our society that talk about God. The Constitution says we're a nation under God. So does the Declaration of Independence. It says we're a nation under God. And we have, in God we trust in our money. Every session of Congress, and I've been to the Iowa legislature with the Scouts, and we did some flag ceremonies there, and they always open with prayer. They always seek God for guidance, and yet we're in a mess. Where's God? You don't have to look very far to see that we're in a mess. And if you're older, like me and most of you, we've been in a mess for a long time. This goes back years and years and years that this country is just, it's turning its back. Now, Sammy Davis Jr., and you remember he was a singer, actor, celebrity back in the 60s and 70s. He was well known. He was a member of what was called the Hollywood Rat Pack of the day, which included Frank Sinatra and Dean Martin, Joey Bishop, and Peter Lawford and some others, some mafia people usually, and maybe, depending on where they were, maybe Marilyn Monroe, maybe one of the Kennedy brothers. Just the whole scene was, they were very, very well known. That's who Sammy Davis Jr. is. Anton LaVey is the founder of the Church of Satan. Founded in 1966 in San Francisco. He's the high priest. Of course, he's dead now. And when he founded his church, immediately there were many, many celebrities that joined that church. Sammy Davis Jr. was one. Jane Mansfield was another. Roman Polanski, the director who made Rosemary's Baby, the movie. Sharon Tate, his wife, who was killed by Charles Manson. And many other Hollywood types joined that church. You can go on the internet and find pictures of Jane Mansfield at a black mass receiving communion from Anton LaVey. So this goes back to the 60s. Michael Aquino he's retired now. He's a retired Army colonel. He was a military intelligence officer. He was involved in writing these NSA programs where everybody's phone spied on and tapped and all this anti-terrorist stuff. That was him, designed that. That was his day job. His nighttime, his moonlight job is he's still around. He is the high priest of the Temple of Set, which is probably replaced the Church of Satan as the big organization of the Satanists in this country. Now he's working for the government. He's a government guy. I mean, he's an Army colonel. He was also involved, remember Johnny Gosch, the paper boy from Des Moines, got kidnapped and was gone for 8 or 9 years, however long. He was questioned in the disappearance of Johnny Gosch because there was a big pedophile ring around the country and involved all these military daycares, and he was questioned. Didn't get convicted, but he was questioned. And Johnny Gosch, who, by the way, returned to his parents, says that he's the guy that kidnapped him. So, this goes back a while. Okay, what I'm trying to show is that we have a lot of problems in very high places in our country. And again, this goes beyond anything that's going on now, any election, any politician. This is way, way deeper than that. You know, Jesus said, I looked this one up, Matthew 18:8 says, Jesus said, will the Son of Man find faith in the earth when he returns? And you really wonder if they're going to find faith in this country anyway, because when you go a little deeper, and we've talked about how in Israel they were saying the temple of the Lord, we have the temple of the Lord, and yet, this was in Judah, we have the temple, because the temple was in the southern kingdom, and they were doing all the sacrifices and all of that, but they were doing all of this, they were worshiping Baal. They were worshiping the Queen of Heaven. they were worshiping all the gods of the nations around them. The Jews have a month in their calendar called Tammuz. Tammuz is a pagan god that was worshipped. He was the husband of the Queen of Heaven. They worshipped him. They worshipped him so much, they made one of their months. They named, well, of course we do that. We go by the Roman calendar. July is Julius Caesar and all of that. But they were supposed to be, God's people. And they were so attached to this God, they named one of the months after him. And I did a little counting, and I found that in the Old Testament, 134 references to Baal, most of which are place names where they named a town or a place after Baal, or they named their children Baal, like Jerubbaal. That's Baal on there. They would attach Baal to the names of their children because they're worshiping both. And the way it went is when the big stuff happened, the invasions and all of that, they'd turn to the God of the Bible. See, but in their everyday life, they'd worship Baal to get their crops because he was going to give them good crops and livestock and prosperity. And we do the same thing. We go to church, we turn around, we worship celebrities who have given themselves to the devil. And you don't believe that? Go on YouTube. You'll see you can get a video. Snoop Dogg, you all know who Snoop Dogg is, even if you're my age. He's made a video about how he made a pact with the powers of darkness for success. And you can find one for Bob Dylan. You can find one for Cher. You can find one for all these people. Okay, you say, well, that's the world. What about the church? Well, we'll go a little farther here. Now, these churches, like the Temple of Set and the Church of Satan, they have doctrine. They have a doctrinal statement, just like we do. Just like most churches have a doctrine. This is what we believe. Well, one of their beliefs is that Jesus Christ is currently in hell being tortured by the devil. That's their doctrine. That's their official doctrine. Okay. Now, the doctrine of radical Islam is the same thing. Jesus Christ is being tortured by Allah. This is where we really should wake up. There's a doctrine called Jesus died spiritually, which is in the church, that says that Jesus went to hell for 3 days and had to be born again and was under the control of the devil. If Jesus Christ was under the control of the devil for even a split nanosecond, then he ain't God. Then Satan won. If Satan had control of him for any length of time, then how did he get born again? Who died for Jesus? And yet these people are all over, and we support them. Christians go, they hop and pop and jump and shout. Well, that's their doctrine. And I don't see much difference between that and saying that Jesus is being tortured right now by the devil. The Talmud says the same thing. The Orthodox Jews believe the same thing. Jesus Christ was an imposter. And he's being tortured too, according to them. So here we are in Christian America, and we have this dual worship going on all over in our churches, all over in our country. We're saying, oh, we're a nation under God. And yet, we're allowing ourselves to be taken over everywhere. Now, these Islamists that come in, they're going to enforce their doctrine. And their doctrine says that Allah is the victor. And so they're not going to let you believe what you want. We're getting our rights shut down every day. Every time you make a phone call, every time you go on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, anything, that's all read. That can all be looked at. And if they don't like what you say, they will shut you off. They'll close your account. If they think you're mean or hateful, this hurts me because the First Amendment and the Constitution says we have freedom of speech. We're supposed to have freedom. I took an oath to defend that in the military. So did my father. So did my uncle and Tana's father and many of you that are listening or you have relatives. My grandfather did. He fought in World War I. And here we are, we don't have what we had. Because we've allowed ourselves to be hoodwinked, We look here at this little problem and we get our pocket picked over here. They show us this thing and we get zapped again. We're looking at, this story on the news and somebody's sneaking in and taking and shutting us down. So I don't know what to say. Except that it's later than we think. It's later. This has just gone on so long that Jesus is right when he says, will there be faith anywhere on the earth? When we're gone, there's nothing much left. If America goes whatever, Muslim or whatever, who's going to fight anything? Who's going to oppose anything? Nobody. We're all gone unless Jesus, the rapture comes and he takes us home, but we may have to go through a lot. So I want to show you that, this business of Israel, back and forth with God, back and forth, under the judges, under the control of the other nations, just like us. The old guy in the sky is going to take care of me, when it's important. But, day to day, I don't mess with him and he doesn't mess with me. That's the way most people in the church are. They go to church and, they want God to bail them out when it's something severe, health problems or money or marriage or whatever. But day to day, they don't, they're not worshiping God. And so we're really, if America's in prophecy, and again, I don't want to get into that because I didn't really study that part, but we really need revival. We need repentance. We need supernatural. To me, it's got to be supernatural. I don't see what I see. I don't see getting right without some kind of, sign and wonder from God. Jesus in the clouds, or Jesus appearing to people and saying, fall on your face like Isaiah did, or Moses when he said, show me your glory, and he couldn't take the glory. He had to look at the back part. That's what we need. And it's for the church. Revival's for the church, not for the world. Revival's for us to go out and win the lost. If we expect that dead world out there to get revived, it won't happen. They might get churchy, but they're not going to get revived. That's for us. We're supposed to come to the house of God and get equipped and go out and win the lost. We're not supposed to drag people in here. We can. We've done it. You should bring people in, but that's not really what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to go out and meet them at Walmart, meet them in the street, meet them in school, meet them in workplace, wherever, and be the church there. They're not going to come to church unless they have a big problem. And we've seen all that. People need healing, people need money, people need their marriage fixed or whatever, and they come here or wherever and get what they need and they're gone. How many people have come through this door? Oh, yes. How many of you seen that you've been here longer than we have? Yeah. Jesus said, will there be faith on the earth? And you have to look. Is there faith in the church? Is the church operating in faith? The only thing that's going to please God is your faith. That's right. You're not going to please, now, don't take this the wrong way, but you're not going to please him, with your money or your, jumping and shouting and your all of that. That's not what's going to please God. In the end, it's going to be your faith. We need to operate in faith. That's the only thing that's going to please him. And there's, we can walk out of church and be lost and have jumped and shouted. Brother Beach's church tells them this all the time when we go there. They get up and say, you know what? Jumping and shouting and singing and all of that is not going to save you. And that they tell them all the time, that you walk out of here and be just as lost as before you walked in. And you don't hear that much. You don't hear that much in churches anymore. You hear, let's all participate and let's all, and they give you a job to do. You walk in the door, oh, we're glad to have you here. You can be a Sunday school teacher, Even though you haven't been saved 3 days, you already are a Sunday school teacher or an usher or some office. And that builds, that pumps the numbers up. But that's not what's going to last when the trials come. Look at the people in Europe, the Christians, the people that are serving God around the world in these small countries. They're getting a gun put in their face. Right. They're getting tortured and, convert, repent. Are we going to do that? Are we going to be able to stand? Is there going to be faith on the earth when Jesus comes? And, I heard a sermon one time called Bringing Back the King. And I can't remember who preached it, but the minister was saying, maybe the reason Jesus isn't returning is he's waiting for us to get ourselves right. And we're going to bring back the king when we get to where he can use us. Because he's not coming for everybody that's in the seat. He's not going to come for everybody that's sitting in church. The parable of the 10 virgins makes it very clear. And some are looking and some are not. And he's coming for those who are looking for him and who love his appearing. And, this business of Gideon and his call and what he, did for the Lord, I think is very, very much like what we see in our country today. This, Baal in the backyard, and yet, we know about the true God. We've been taught about the true God, but we have Baal in the back room. And so, examine your heart. That's what Jesus said. Let a man examine himself. And that means men and women, of course. Examine yourself. You've got to check yourself every day. The old saying, check yourself before you wreck yourself. Well, that's good advice. We all need to see where we're at every day, because where you are today may not be where you're going to be tomorrow. Judas was with Jesus the whole time. Did everything, all the signs and wonders, healing, went out with him when he sent them out 2 by 2. Judas was there. And yet, look where he ended up. So don't say you can't not make it, because you cannot make it. You cannot make it to the end. Jesus said, who finishes the race? He that endures to the end will be saved. So he didn't say somebody got saved 25 years ago is going to make it in. So we need to take what's going on in Gideon to heart, because we're very much like Israel, I think. You know, Israel is very much like America, and there's a connection there, and Pastor John was able to show it, and I don't remember all the scriptures, but there is a prophetic connection between Israel and America. And as one goes, so goes the other. So, you know, as you leave, and we're going to get back to Gideon, we're going to get back to his call and how he served God and accomplished the victory. But this is something that just has stuck out to me for a long time when I read about Gideon's father having an altar on his land. And then when his son tore it down, all of a sudden, he's not a Baal worshiper anymore. See, he sees that Baal has failed him. How come Baal didn't protect his altar? How come Baal didn't come down and protect? See, well, like we said before, the devil will abandon you. Oh, yeah. You think you're hooked up? You think you're hooked up with the devil? You got something going with the devil? All these men in that picture all think or thought they had a connection with the devil. And, well, I don't want to be where they are, because they, you know, he abandoned them all. So take that to heart and just realize that what you see around you, you know, is the product of years and years and years of just chipping away at the church, chipping away at what this country used to be. And I mean, it was never, you know, the kingdom of heaven. America was never perfect. But what it was founded on is slowly being eaten away by the forces of the devil. And this Islamic thing is just another wave that's coming against us. And we've said before, God uses one nation to chastise his people and other nations. You know, Egypt was destroyed by Moses at the Red Sea. Assyria moved in and took Israel captive. They were conquered by the Babylonians. The Babylonians were conquered by the Persians. The Persians were conquered by Alexander the Great. All of that was God moving nations around to fulfill his purpose. So America, you know, we've got the Midianites moving in and all their allies. They had allies. They had the desert people with them, and they had the Amalekites with them, and their forces were huge, and they moved in, and we've got them moving in here. They're going to take us over if they can. So, you know, and I'm not trying to put fear in anybody's hearts, but we just have to get serious about our day-to-day life, because our day-to-day life is getting more and more controlled by forces that we don't have any control over. People that you never met make decisions for you that affect your life every day. Think about it. If Jesus came today, is he going to find the faith that he needs to find?
Full sermons are available anytime at www.anchoredinfaith.org. Contact us by calling 319-828-4815 or write us at Anchored in Faith, P.O. Box 204, Oxford, Iowa 52322, or email us at tv@anchoredinfaith.org. This has been a copyrighted presentation of Anchored in Faith Gospel Church, Oxford, Iowa.